Hi, Cedrus. So a couple things here before we get started. I'm doing video commentaries for the finals in the creative writing class this semester. It's just way easier rather than typing it all out. What else? These are private. They're only to you. The link, the video link will only go to you from Moodle. What else? I hope you are well. I hope all your loved ones are well. I hope you're biding your time okay, not getting a little too stir crazy during the lockdown. It's a little more severe down there in Nassau than it is here in America, which is why you'll probably have fewer infections, which is going to be good. Okay, so I'm going to start with the poems first. Once again, it's lyric poetry is more or less. Oh, sorry, these will only run out to about 5 minutes. Okay. So lyric poetry always wants to operate as a function of line and image, and here you have kind of like I think I said this in class, because the first two poems that you submitted here, what are they called? Ignite and Revive, and I mean that's a pretty good title. The Child Who Was Found, and your poems are so broadly metaphoric, right? And they're reminiscent of what are called the metaphysical poets. The two most famous would be John Donne and George Herbert. They were like devotional poets. John Donne, not so much early in his life, but later he became a very devout Christian, wrote a lot of really beautiful sermons and really beautiful poems, about his relationship to God. George Herbert, very, very devout writer. So they would take these metaphors and really build them, okay, into something what's called a conceit. And in literature, a conceit would be a very big, broad metaphor that compares and contrasts two unlike things. Okay, so here it's hard for a reader to latch on to these poems and kind of figure out what's going on. Okay, I will say this: Atonement as a poem is probably the strongest of them, and I think it's because of that last line. Now, I still don't understand why you are end stopping every single line. There's punctuation at the end of every line, even when it doesn't require it. Okay? So technically that's called an end stopped line, and poetry doesn't need to have everything end stopped. It actually kind of kills a lot of the momentum. But I really like that last line of the poem Atonement. Now, the story, here's my suggestion. Okay? Here you have James Spy, Private Eye, the Missing Mio D'Angelo. Won't work as a title. Okay, it's too strange. I don't. It's like the title of a series, not the title of a story. My suggestion for you going forward, and this is just an editing suggestion, because I know I've mentioned this to you before. You tend to overwrite. Your sentences are overwrought. Okay, it's like they're overwritten in order to make them look more complex. My suggestion would be try writing with more declarative sentences. That is to say, subject, verb, predicate. He went to the store. Things like that, where that'll help keep the language, because some of this is so Baroque that it's actually hard to make out. On page, I think 3 or 4, folding further within himself, that doesn't make any sense. Darwin clutched his palms tightly and resumed his vice grip before relaying his spying in the cabinet held by the most feared man in the university. James's eyes seemed to double as his side sharply turned rightward, arms flaying out from a body that seemed to cease breathing. I don't know what that means. Okay, There are images in there, but they're just, the sentence itself is getting in the way of what the image wants to communicate. Okay. Couple pages later. There was never a time where he believed anyone had entered this man's class where at the very least he was not present. Like sometimes like the pronouns are getting mixed up. The ending is way too tidy. I mean, just to point this out, in a mystery story, all of the plot details, because the mystery is a type of plot, all the details have to line up perfectly to the plot. So, for example, this guy comes in and they were just making a copy of the painting, right? And that's what caused the mystery. Does not resolve this, because then you just go back, 5 seconds in the mind, and you're like, wouldn't the university have known this? Wouldn't the department have known this? Wouldn't the art department have known this? Wouldn't the provost have known this? Wouldn't the dean have known this? I mean, also, if the painting's only worth $25,000, and granted, I know that's a lot of money, that doesn't really up the stakes as much as it should. So I mean, there's a lot of just functional things in the story that really need fixing. And given that I didn't see this story in its original draft because you never submitted a story earlier on in the semester for workshop, I don't know where this story began, and so therefore I can't really assess where the story is right now, you see? So that would be my suggestion, is just in future work for fiction, try to write more declarative sentences. Okay, just aim for clarity. Okay, you don't have to, you don't have to stylize the language so much that it actually is getting in the way of itself and what it's trying to communicate. And with poetry, I would recommend, once again, going back and finding authors that, go read John Donne, go read George Herbert. See what they do with imagery and see what they do with the language and line, and just try to mimic that in a way and let that guide future editing. So anyway, like I said, I hope you're well, and stay safe, stay sane, and I hope you have a really lovely summer. Bye.